In any meaningful venture, motivation must turn into self-discipline. Otherwise, the project or product or business falls apart. Yes, unfortunate, but it is the reality. Motivation is very fleeting. It can get you started, but it cannot sustain you, unfortunately. And that is why you must turn that into self-discipline. But the question, of course, is how do you go about doing that? Well, one of the things that I love is a quote. It often gets attributed to novelist Peter de Vries, where he writes, "I write when I'm inspired, and I see to it that I'm inspired at 9 o'clock every morning." So that's the first part of it, is turning your motivation into an actual routine, right? Create routines that work for you. Don't overextend yourself. Start with just a little. That's one of the biggest reoccurring piece of advice that I tell to aspiring artists is to, like, let's say they want to write a novel. Okay, well, how about you just aim to write for an hour a week, right? That's not a lot. It's going to take you a while to finish the novel, but it's more than you were doing before, right? So just start with some sort of routine and build on it, right? It can be a snowball effect over time. Now, the second part of that, break up whatever it is that you're working on into manageable milestones, right? If we're talking about a novel, that is a big thing. So, as I said, start with an hour a week, right? Or whatever it is. And build towards like, okay, I'm going to write a chapter like in total by the end of this month. And, each month I'm going to write a chapter, blah, blah, blah. And then by such and such date, I'm going to write the first draft and whatever it is. That way you're not staring down the barrel of like years of your work. It's much more doable, and you're like, okay, I can focus on day to day, week to week. I mean, literally, even in my own life, as I'm working on this animated feature film of mine that's like my big milestone project, we did a production calendar where we looked at, okay, the next 3 years in order to get it complete. And when you look at it, it's like, wow, this is the next 3 years of my life, essentially, potentially more. The 3 years if it all goes well. But obviously within that, everything's broken down, so it's manageable. And you can take a sigh of relief and like, okay, cool, So break it up into milestones. Number 3, build accountability. That's why people love working out in group settings, because it's not just them. They can get inspiration from somebody else, and someone else can inspire them, conversely, right? So very much in that same way, we can apply this logic to this, where, you reach out to a friend and you're like, hey, hold me accountable. By the end of the month, I'm going to write, the first chapter. And if I don't, I owe you $10 or something like that. Just something that where, even just if it's not a monetary thing, by telling multiple people that you're going to do this, there's like a built-in shame, I feel like, where we want to be impeccable with our word, and if we don't say the thing, then we kind of get embarrassed about it, right? People start to ask us, well, hey, how's that thing that you were telling me about? Wasn't really doing it, this and that, right? And that's partly why I also love to utilize my platform in that way to share my experience, because it holds me accountable in that way to make sure that I'm doing what I say I'm doing, that I'm walking the walk, as it were, or walking the talk, I think is the phrase. Number 4, learn to sit with discomfort. It's not always easy, right? It's like working out. You can go to the gym and initially you're motivated and it's like, okay, cool, like I'm gonna get in shape, or I'm gonna build my cardio, I'm gonna build strength, whatever it is. There's this like grand picture in our minds and it's all rosy, right? But maybe the first time we go, it's like, okay, cool. And then the second time and third time, if we start to really do this, that joyous nature can start to fade a little bit, right, over time. And that's where, because it's hard, right? It's not to say that all of a sudden working out got bad. It's just that it became hard after a certain point. Like, it is hard. Like, one of the biggest things about anything meaningful is the consistency of it. I know plenty of people who are very, very talented, far better than me, and far better than a lot of other people, but they don't have that consistency. And without that consistency, you got nothing, unfortunately. So can you deliver, and can you sit in the discomfort of having to do this, day in and day out and stuff like that? Learn to accept and sit in that and break through. Now, how can you also break through? Well, think about, what is your why? Why did you begin this project in the first place? What was that spark of motivation that brought you to this and said, hey, this is what I want to do. This is worth it to me. All this stuff that I'm going through is worth, going through all of this. So think about that. And when you can, obviously the stronger the why, the more you'll be able to push through all of this stuff. And that is how you begin to take motivation and turn it into self-discipline. Now, just in terms of how to really reflect upon this, audit your patterns. What are some unfinished projects that you might have, and why? Really think about, why did you lose that steam? Is there a pattern that forms? And can you really kind of start to break it, right? Think about that. Secondly, define your minimum commitment, right? That's why I said, if you could just do an hour of writing a week, and by the way, I've been using writing, but if you just dedicate an hour to whatever it is a week, again, not a lot, but it's more than you were doing before, and it can certainly add up. And just like with working out, you don't see results overnight, but you will start to see them if you keep that consistency. Thirdly, set a deadline with teeth, meaning what's a realistic but also competitive deadline for yourself, right? We talk a lot about this idea that we tend to procrastinate, right? And there's a saying that the time to completion, meaning how long a project takes, is, I forget the exact term, but essentially it's the same as whatever deadline you give it. So if you give yourself 2 years to do something, it'll take you 2 years. If you give yourself 2 weeks, it'll take you 2 weeks, because there's that kind of built-in pressure. Now, there's obviously nuance with it. I don't 100% agree with it, where like, okay, I'm going to finish a movie, I'm going to finish my animated feature in the next 24 hours. Like, that's not going to work out that way, right? So it's not 100% accurate, but there is some validity to it if you are kind of realistic. And so that pressure of like, oh crap, I gotta finish this, it can create that tension, right? And that's part of what I talked about, that discomfort aspect of it. And then connect to your audience, meaning it can be both literally, but also in terms of your creative or business project. Like, why did you want to set out to do this in the first place, right? That's talking about that why, and what is the impact you hope that it will have on your audience? Because thinking about it in that perspective can really help reignite that motivation that perhaps was lost for a while, right? So these are just kind of some things that I use as prompts to get me going and stuff like that, and with other people. But I certainly encourage you to think of your own. In fact, if you do, comment down below. Let me know what some things are. And also, too, just in the greater scope of all of it, how do you view turning motivation into self-discipline? You know, what have been perhaps your pitfalls, and what have been things that have gotten you past it? I would love to know. So yeah, comment down below. And I hope this helps. As always, I truly appreciate you. I hope to see you next time.